Mudgee. The name of this region in Australia's New South Wales means nest in the hills in the local Aboriginal tongue. We drove from the Hunter Valley over the mountains and into this region to speak with David Lowe of Lowe Wines. David knew he wanted to be a winemaker at 15. In his career, he has had the opportunity to taste some of the best wines in the world. But let's let David tell it. Well, to start out, tell me about your family has quite the history here in the Mudgee region. So give me a bit of background on that, if you would.
Yeah, so our background was from 1824. This was settled. And agriculture then was very different from now. It was a lot of sheep and not so many cattle. And people came this way from Sydney, going west, looking for new land. And of course, all the best properties were on the river, and it turns out to be a very smart thing to do now, being such a drought. So our family worked with sheep and cattle over the years and wheat crops. And eventually this region got into more and more horticulture. And that was a better way to deal with the small size of the farmlets that are here. Australia has gone into more broadacre and there's this big change in the way we deal with agriculture now, where Australia was really seen as a place where we grew with productivity. It's like the central parts of the United States where they had big crops in big areas and large amounts, and it was easy to sell one large amount. And a lot of Australia's development in marketing and sales was via statutory authorities, where they would sell container loads and ship loads of wheat and products all around the world. And so price really wasn't important, it was about productivity. So little places that are tightly held, that have got varying geology, varying soil types, varying mesoclimates, found that one way of growing agriculture didn't suit all. So we found that there were divisions within this one region, like Mudgee, where there'd be 40% was really good for high productivity agriculture and 20% was useless for agriculture, but good for other, maybe some manufacturing, and the other 40% would be good for diverse forms of agriculture. Grapevine started here in 1850s because of gold mining. It has a very similar history to Sonoma, hence my involvement with California, my love of California and what they've done. And so it's no accident that we see similarities between what we're trying to do now and the people that here and we produce and market wine to Sonoma particularly and towards Russian River. So our family was always in pastoral activities, and as a 15-year-old, a long time ago when we had to choose our electives at school, we were told that the electives we chose were going to be our career. We believed that. So I happened to be working at a winery next door at the lowest of the low, bottom of the food chain. I was on the bottling line. And I loved it. And they put me in the laboratory technician, went away for a while, and they put me in the laboratory, and I loved the chemistry. So I got right into wine, and I announced to my family, who are perhaps not you would consider modern wine drinkers, that I wanted to be a winemaker at 15. And I made that decision and I've stuck to it. That's all I've done. So who knows if I'm any good at anything else or not. In fact, my parents, I found out later on, used to go to church to pray for my soul, because their view of a wine drinker was someone who had a bottle in a brown paper bag under a bridge. So eventually I converted them to wine, and they started their own wine cellar, which was a terrific conversion, I thought. So from 15, I knew what I wanted to be, a winemaker. And then it was a matter of getting training, getting academic qualifications, working for wine companies that would allow me the license to do the things I wanted to do, to experiment, to innovate, and to learn my craft. And I was very fortunate to work for a wine company that had, as the principal, as the chairman of the company, one of the great, would be arguably one of the 5 great men of wine in the world. His name was Len Evans. He was great friends with all those people in the United States, in the UK, France, Italy, Germany, knew them all. So I met them all. I met Robert Mondavi through him, wow. Some amazing contacts. And I was exposed to some of the great wines of the world. In fact, he was adamant on day 2 when I was working there that I had to try the best 20 wines in the world. I think he wanted to have them himself afterwards, but at the time I went along with it. And 9 of the 20 were either biologic, Demeter, or organic. And they were French, and 1 or 2 Spanish, some Italian, 1 or 2 German. But the great names of wine, Biz Leroy, Domaine de la Romani, Conti, Richebourg, Latac, all of those great wines. And I always wanted to know what the relationship was between organic, biodynamic and quality. And they said, well, that's how they choose to do it in that part of Europe. They think it makes better wine. And I was hooked. But I had no knowledge of how to do that. And it wasn't until early 2000s that there was a very important conference in Australia on biodynamics. It was in Beechworth in central Victoria. And then there's so much opportunity to learn about biodynamics. And so we had an unhealthy system, an unhealthy farm. The farm had been run down for no one's fault, but because of being inactive. My parents were old. I wanted to come back and they weren't sure that there was a room for me. So the place was run down. One of the ways to fix it was biodynamics. And we really had no research, not much knowledge. A bit of interest, but there was no book that you could say easy ways to be biodynamic. So we started on the path to learn about biodynamics. And that's taken now nearly 20 years to get right. And I don't think we're right anywhere near it, but we've made an improvement. And for us, watching us the change year in year out, you don't see the improvements, but other people have come in who might come every 5 years and say, wow, this place has really changed. That's nice to hear. We don't do as much measurement as we should, because biodynamics isn't so much about measurement, it's about a progression, getting on and off the bus, if you like. That's the brief history.